IoT Unplugged. Tune in to the Internet of Things. Ambient IoT is emerging as a transformative force in the smart world concept, characterized by its ability to connect a vast array of everyday objects, from home appliances to urban infrastructure, such as crates carrying food. It creates an interconnected network that operates quietly in the background, and is an ecosystem propelled forward by the evolution of key technologies such as Bluetooth, 5G, and advanced Wi-Fi standards, each contributing to a more cohesive and efficient ambient IoT landscape. The development and adoption of these technologies are critical in expanding the reach and capabilities of ambient IoT. Yet, what are the key drivers of its expansion? And how are emerging standards shaping the future of this concept and its wider rollout to potentially feature trillions of connected things? To discuss this further, I'm joined by Steve Statler, Chief Marketing Officer of Wiliot. Steve, thank you for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit about what Wiliot does?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the podcast. So Wiliot is an ambient Internet of Things company, and we have a cloud platform that enables real-time visibility of every single thing: food, clothing, medicine containers. And it's all enabled by a tiny postage stamp-sized computer, which powers itself without batteries by harvesting the energy from radio waves. And these tiny stickers that are the size of a postage stamp, they talk Bluetooth and they sense temperature, and they allow us to close the digital divide between the awesome power of the internet and generative AI and every single thing that surrounds us. And we think that this new technology is going to be tremendously disruptive and open up huge possibilities for many, many people, whether they're technology companies that want to build on the platform or businesses that want to create new, exciting services that haven't been possible before.
Okay, excellent. Well, you mentioned a little bit about some of the applications of ambient IoT, so maybe we could dig into that a bit more. And that is, can you provide us an overview of the ambient IoT ecosystem and its role in connecting everyday objects around us?
Yeah. So the term ambient IoT is not one that Wiliot invented. It actually came from the third generation partnership organization that defines 5G and 6G. And so ambient IoT is a technology that's here today, but there's more chapters in the story coming as it goes beyond Bluetooth into the cellular telecommunications stack. And also there's going to be a Wi-Fi version that IEEE are working on. And so this ability to have connectivity for pennies, for cents, these tags, the chip that is at the heart of this and makes the whole thing possible, which we designed, costs 5.5 cents. So that's the most expensive thing in the bill of materials for this Internet of Things device. And, ambient IoT, people kind of have a sense of what ambient is, that word's been around for a very long time. It means sort of surrounding us, all around us. And it takes the Internet of Things from being what really has been the Internet of expensive things. We've been tracking food, we've been tracking containers, cars, appliances like washing machines and fridges. These all have IoT connectivity in them today, to double clicking and connecting the things that go inside the cars and inside the shipping containers and inside the washing machine and the fridge. So this very low cost of connectivity basically tears down the barriers and allows the vision of digital to physical convergence to finally come about, because that cost barrier is removed. And it really was the original vision. So a lot of the use cases that we are implementing are ones that people have dreamt about for a very long time, but haven't been able to achieve. And in the long run, the ambient Internet of Things will allow manufacturers to have connected products that will connect directly into the home. So imagine connected clothing, imagine food producers knowing when the food that they produce is consumed, and being able to completely re-engineer the supply chains so that they're not just a little bit more efficient, but they're 2 or 3 times as efficient. And that will be a huge profit driver, but it also will be an amazing driver for environmental improvements. If you take out 2/3 of the product in a supply chain, not only because does it become leaner and more profitable, but you take away 2/3 of the carbon. So I actually believe that ambient IoT is one of our most potent weapons for fighting climate change, because it allows us to light up the entire supply chain and run it as if we've just found the cheat code for the strategy game that we're all living in, and we've turned on God mode and we become omniscient. Now, all of this sounds a bit science fiction-y and far-flung, and what we're working on today is a lot more practical, and it's about lighting up supply chains between the distribution center and the store, as well as doing some other stuff, which is really cool. Like we integrated our technology into vials of COVID vaccines so that you could measure the temperature and the handling of that vaccine. So there's some short-term applications which are very practical that are around helping retailers manage their goods so that when you buy things online and go to the store, they're actually where they should be. Or if you buy things online for home delivery, you get less substitutions. Or when you buy things online, the deliveries go more smoothly. The right product is loaded onto the right shipping container, therefore allowing the online merchant to keep their delivery promise, which is important if you've just taken the day off to receive a sofa. So a bunch of really great short-term practical applications, but the far-reaching implications of linking the internet to everything in a supply chain will change the way retail is done, and it will change the way healthcare is done. It will change the way we fight criminality, counterfeit, theft. If everything's connected, then that changes too. But all of that will take a few years to roll out, and so we're focused on some much more practical short-term applications that can be done in a few weeks and months, rather than the time it's going to take for our technology ecosystem to basically reconfigure itself and all of the skills and ideas to percolate. You know, the internet didn't happen overnight. It took some time to evolve, and the internet, the ambient Internet of Things, will take some time as the software gets built and the business models get thought through, and the old thinking gives way to the new thinking.
So talking a bit about technology there, I was wondering if you could tell us how the advancements in Bluetooth or 5G or even Wi-Fi is going to affect ambient IoT.
So there's a number of new technology and existing technologies that underpin ambient IoT. And today we are making millions of these tags, almost 100 million last year, using Bluetooth and the existing protocol, which is part of every smartphone and smart speaker and many appliances and so forth. And Bluetooth is a great standard because it's consistent and universal. It uses the same frequency in every country, unlike technologies like RFID, where there's different frequencies for different countries and different regulatory frameworks. So we chose Bluetooth to start with because it was there. And we basically use the Bluetooth advertising packet, which every modern Bluetooth device uses to advertise its presence. So your phone knows that there's a Bluetooth printer nearby because the printer broadcasts the advertising packets to let other devices know that it's present. So we built are initial generations of what we call IoT pixels on top of Bluetooth. And then it became known to us that 3GPP, who are the standards body behind the 5G Advanced, 6G standards, was interested in building out comparable functionality. And we really felt that this was important for many reasons. There's some obvious reasons of why you might want to use cellular standards. You go from spectrum that is shared and unregulated and free to a spectrum which is regulated, and there's a 611 number, an 800 number to call if things don't go well. So to expand ambient IoT, getting the biggest technology companies in the world, i.e. the telcos and the device companies that make phones, involved, seemed like it would help us go beyond what we could do with simply Bluetooth. Even though Bluetooth is an amazing standard and it's pervasive, if you can involve the giants in telco, then they spend more money in marketing in a few minutes than our company, who's very well funded, has raised in its entire history. But the other thing that 3GPP and what will be called ambient 5G Advanced Ambient IoT, one of the things that brings is a network. And as we see it today, we're a firmware upgrade away from devices like smart speakers being able to energize and read our tags, which would be amazing. But it does put whoever owns the technology in the smart speaker in a gatekeeper position where they control the access to the home. And so every retailer, every CPG company, if they wanted to use those smart speakers, would have to do a deal with the folks like Google and Amazon. And whilst that might be great for them and potentially even great for our company, if you want to see ambient IoT achieve its full potential, which is estimated to be an addressable market of 10 trillion things, which is about 3 orders of magnitude bigger than the current IoT market, then we felt like having a network that allowed any retailer, any consumer packaged goods company to link with the products in the home was an important thing. And if you think about telco networks, if you're calling a friend, you don't worry about whether they're on T-Mobile or AT&T or on Vodafone. It just works. And the telco industry is extremely good at interoperability and routing. And so that's the reason for having a different variant with different tags potentially that works with that standard. And then lastly, IEEE that define Wi-Fi, they're working on something called Ambient IoT AMP. And that brings in the giants of the enterprise, the Ciscos, the HP Arubas. And so there's a lot that they can offer and bring to Ambient IoT to accelerate its adoption and to provide the management services that are an increasing part of their business model, and something that's very much appreciated by big businesses that don't want to rely on a technology that it doesn't have someone big behind it. So that is a bit about why we're using Bluetooth and what the role is of Wi-Fi and 3GPP in this future ambient IoT.
Okay, great. Well, talking about these different standards, I know you touched upon it just briefly there, but I was wondering, could you discuss the importance of interoperability between these different standards in achieving a cohesive ambient IoT ecosphere?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how much interoperability there is between the Bluetooth, the 3GPP, and the IEEE standards. It's definitely something that we want to achieve. As Wiliot, we're determined to be first to market with pre-standard and standards compliant versions, and we're looking at ways of bridging those. The reality is each of these is likely to have its own physical and logical network layers. So at some level, there will be some different technologies, and each one will have its strengths and weaknesses. It's likely that the Bluetooth version will be lower cost than the 3GPP version, but it won't have a network behind it. So, this is all something that will come out. The 5G advanced version is still in definition, so no one knows exactly how it's going to pan out. It looks like there's going to be two variants, an active and a passive version. Wiliot's pixels today are active. They're actually FCC certified, and the way they work is we harvest the signals, weak signals from commodity devices that are pervasive and very low cost, and we accumulate that harvested energy over time in a tiny, tiny capacitor that's built into the chip, and then we broadcast a stronger signal out. So weak signal in from cheap device, stronger signal out that gives you more range. There's another version that's likely to be based on a technology very similar to what's used in the legacy Gen 2 RFID, using a technique called backscatter, which is relatively simple to implement compared to an active radio. So it's likely to bring in more choice and more suppliers, and the R&D lift will be a bit easier. But it has the disadvantage that you need a stronger signal to be sent to the IoT device, which then reflects back a weaker signal. So there tend to be some compromises. You need a more expensive reader with multiple radios. The range is a little bit less, but it's easier to do. So if I'm crystal ball gazing about how it's going to go, I think there'll be a healthy competition between the active instances of Ambient IoT and the passive backscatter technology that might have more people providing technology in that form.
Okay. Moving on to the applications. I know you mentioned earlier, for instance, telling the temperature in which a food is in like a receptacle. I was wondering, what about the emerging applications of IoT? Is there any that you see, like an industry or a process that is ripe for this technology? And what can you tell me about that?
Yeah. I mean, there are thousands of applications for ambient Internet of Things, maybe millions. But we've definitely seen a sweet spot around food, freshness, food safety. It's not the only area that we're pursuing, but it's definitely one of the ones where there's the biggest need and there's huge scale. We all eat food and we all care about its safety, and we would like it to be fresh and tasty. So being able to suddenly have end-to-end traceability of maybe not individual apples, but cases of fruit, vegetables, and meat, and being able to measure the temperature in real time continuously of these things is a huge breakthrough. And I do think that in the future, we'll kind of look back at the early 21st century and marvel that most of our supply chains were offline. And basically, we were at the risk of eating food that wasn't looked after properly. And what we're starting to see now that we can instrument these plastic crates and cases of fruit and veg and meat is actually not pretty. The handling isn't, it's not always bad, but there are frequently, or more frequently than you would like, issues with food being exposed to the wrong temperature, being left out of the refrigerated areas where it should be. And so we're seeing a lot of momentum in areas like quick service restaurants from the kind of the quality end of that market segment, where they pride themselves on freshness and they want to see continuous visibility of their hamburger patties as just one example. There's also some regulatory drivers. So the US Food and Drug Administration is implementing the enforcement around something called FSMA 204, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act Rule 204, which, long story short, means for certain high-risk foods, everyone who's involved in making, distributing, selling food will have to have accurate, up-to-the-minute records that they can share within 24 hours of a food event, food poisoning, to the FDA. And that is imposing a huge amount of work on the food industry to gather that information and to get it in a form that they can share it. All of which could basically either mean buying very, very expensive legacy RFID technology or hiring lots of people with handheld scanners to scan barcodes. And Ambient IoT is a really nice fit here because the technology capital costs are extremely low. Bluetooth readers are 100 times cheaper than an RFID reader. You don't need people to hand hold scanners. Bluetooth can be put everywhere. And so you just sense without any reliant on people having to do extra things to get that visibility. So that food safety use case is core. Other use cases, I'll speed it up a little. Other use cases are helping retailers meet the higher bar of omnichannel, where you can buy online, pick up in store, buy online and have deliveries. And there's far too often instances where there's a mispick, or you go to a store and the thing that you were hoping that is on the shelf isn't there, or you order a home delivery and you get a substitution. And that's all really about supply chain accuracy, which Ambient IoT is great at. And we're seeing the technology used for in other verticals like post and parcel. So postal services are under threat. They have to reinvent themselves, and Ambient IoT can help them run a lot more efficiently, understanding whether delivery vehicles are full, half full, empty, getting that digital visibility to cut costs, whilst also giving them a platform to offer new traceability services so that they can compete and survive. So many, many applications, but those are some of the ones that we see moving fastest.
Okay, excellent. Well, how might AI and machine learning technologies even further enhance some of these ambient IoT functions that you're just mentioning?
That's a really good question. And, I see the coming together of the digital physical worlds and the ability to apply machine learning and generative AI to the physical world is something that will be truly transformative. And I think it's fair to say we don't fully understand everything that is achievable, but we are using those technologies today. So if you have, for instance, 20,000 items of apparel in a store, all broadcasting their location, on one hand, it's great if you're going to try and find a size and the shop assistant can spend more time talking to you and less time trying to find the stuff. But that's actually easier than it's actually harder than it sounds to pull that off because every one of these tags is constantly broadcasting, maybe even once a second. And so you have this tsunami of data, and certainly your shop assistant doesn't want to have 20,000 location notifications a second coming into their handheld device. They just want to know where something is. So the process of distilling, the same way as we distill grain into whiskey, you distill this massive flow of data into relevant, actionable events. And we use machine learning to do that. The RF radio frequency environment in stores is noisy. There's a lot of signals that bounce around. And so we use machine learning to clean that up and to basically, in a very simple way, fingerprint a physical location so that we know, even if there are 5 readers that pick up a signal from a tag on a jacket, we can use that to give a simple answer to where is the size 11 pair of shoes that someone is looking for. The other side of AI, which gathers more headlines, is the generative AI, the kind of chatbot conversational piece, which is just amazing. And I think this will basically be the layer that applies and allows people to ask the really probing questions about how they can make their supply chain safer. It will help to preempt the logic and drive decisions that will act on the information that the machine learning distills at a lower level. So, what's my vulnerability in the event of industrial action for my supply chain? How is this war event going to impact my supply, and which goods is it going to impact? What are the ways that I can reduce the cost of goods, looking at the production rates and consumption rates, and tell me about the trends in this store versus that store. These sorts of things will be possible, and you'll get instant answers based on ground truth. But I think those are just some of the more obvious early applications, and the ones that are in the future, we're yet to even conceive of.
Okay, well, we've talked a lot about the growth and the potential applications and its expansion with things like AI. Now I'd like to ask, what are some challenges that the ambient IoT ecosystem currently faces, and are there any steps being taken in a broader sense to address these?
Well, I think I've never experienced a technology where so much is possible and there's so much demand for it. But in a way, that is one of the challenges. You can't do everything everywhere all at once, despite the success of that Oscar-winning movie. You have to choose and prioritize. And so I think, companies need to focus. But, more importantly, I think, are all familiar with tracking technology. We all know, and many of us like the AirTags that Apple sell and the Tile devices that help us find the keys. And it's easy to think that this stuff is trivial to implement. But actually, in many cases, the software applications that will allow us to look at a serialized, unique digital product passport have yet to be built. And this is core software. So part of the challenge we have is, even though the tracking technology physically works and is there, the software applications have yet to be written. If you're trying to reinvent a warehouse management system, a supply chain management system, an ERP system, these are core applications that have a real backlog. And so you have of change requests. And to make them compatible with having a unique identity for every single item, that's going to take some time. And so, being early is the same as being wrong in many cases in the startup business. If you place the bet on a use case coming to life too early, you can run out of money and go out of business. So sequencing and timing and choosing the use cases based on what's possible, what's needed, what's quick to implement is part of it. So that's one aspect that I think suppliers need to think about. And then in terms of adopting this technology, if I'm a manufacturer of herbs and spices and I want to supply them through a product as a service subscription, so that my customers never run out of paprika, they never have out of date product, they never have duplicates, and they always have new interesting products. This is a very attractive business model for a CPG company that wants to reduce its cost of customer acquisition, have more reliable demand signals, and if they have a recurring business model, their stock price is going to go up. But if you think about the kind of companies that make a lot of these products, this is not Amazon, this is not Google, that they have to hire people, come up with strategies that are a huge break from anything that they've done in the last 100 or 200 years in some cases. So the whole of the delivery of food is assuming it goes through these tiers of distribution, and going to a direct strategy, if that's the thing you want to do with ambient IoT, takes new skills, new strategies. It requires very senior. This is a board level decision. It's a CXO level decision, and it requires the right people at the director level and the individual contributor level. So I honestly think that many companies will struggle to embrace the full power of ambient IoT. And I think the right way of going about it is to set up a skunk works, to have an empowered group that is small and can work autonomously and can really move with some independence Otherwise, we're going to see what we're seeing in the car industry, where all of the giants of the car industry, they know how to make electric cars, but their stock price has cratered, and now Tesla's stock price is larger than the entire industry combined. Because even though they know how to make electric cars technically, they haven't operationalized it and fully committed and abandoned the old way of doing things. So I think it's actually that transition from the old way to the new way, which is the biggest challenge for ambient IoT.
Okay, so I'm going to roll two into one for my final question, and that is, are there any big developments in connectivity technologies that will further drive the growth of ambient IoT? And if so, what can and how can businesses and consumers prepare for this sort of growth and integrate it and adopt it into their workspaces or their environments?
So I actually think what is needed technically in terms of the standards with Bluetooth is already here. Yes, the 5G Advanced is going to be a huge tsunami of investment and new functionality. But I think the important thing is to start now, start early, learn, iterate, do things in modest scope, and grow. For our part, Wiliot is focused initially on working with the very largest companies, retailers, postal services, and we went through a phase where we just opened up our technology to anyone that wanted to buy a starter kit for $500, and then I think we dropped it down to $50, and so we sold huge numbers of those. But unfortunately, we realized this is such a paradigm shift. Even though if you make it, they will come. They're probably not going to come in time for us, and we weren't mature enough to support them properly at the scale that was required. So this technology at the moment is only available to the very largest companies. But over the next year, my hope is that as we slowly start to bring more partners on board, then it will scale and people will be able to get this technology from a lot of the companies, like most of the RFID tag makers are starting to retool to make IoT pixels. And so that's one place where people will be able to get access to the product from companies like Avery Dennison and Identiv, who are making billions of tags for using legacy Gen 2 RFID. They're all tooling up to make this technology. So, and there are companies like Energous and Menu who are making the devices. And we already have support from companies like Cisco and HP Aruba. So I guess people will need to have some patience. Not all ambient IoT is about what we do as Wiliot, of course. I'm passionate about the fact that we have this incredibly low-cost radio frequency-based product. But ambient IoT can be as simple as having a printed battery or a solar-powered device. And there's a lot of tags that maybe don't cost pennies, but maybe they cost $1 or $2 with printed batteries. And that's one of the ways that people who want to find out more about this and can't wait for us can get started and start writing the back-end software applications that are really the things that they need to be ready for using with the tags that we make, which will cost 10 to 15 cents over the next few by the second half of this year. Your prices will vary. We don't actually sell the tags, we make the chips, but that's kind of the ballpark that we're looking at. So I think start thinking about the use cases that are relevant to your industry, build up competence, start to think about serialization, digital product passports. These are concepts that will be useful not just for our technology, but other people's technologies, and will put you in a really good place to take advantage of the ambient IoT technology that Wiliot has, that will start to become more broadly available as some of the giants of the industry that we're focusing on, just so that we can bootstrap our own company as we start to broaden our focus.
Okay, well, excellent. I think that's a good place to end it. Steve, thanks for taking the time to speak to us today.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. Great questions, and I appreciate the chance to spread the message about what's happening in this area.
Excellent. I'm sure our listeners will agree. It's been a great chat. Thank you. Remember to subscribe to IoT Unplugged wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to share with anyone you think would find it as interesting or as informative as you have. IoT Unplugged. Tune in to the Internet of Things.